know. We're coming off a grief episode, going into anxiety episode. Heavy hitters.
Majorly heavy hitters.
But I also feel like something like anxiety is one that we have talked about, and we've interwoven it into so many of our other episodes. It just kind of makes sense to have a standalone.
Yeah. Well, when this one popped up for this week, and we literally sat with each other and we're like, how have we not talked about this? I think it's because literally we talk about it
all day,
with everything,
every day,
all the time. So it's like, of course we did a podcast on that,
right? Like when
guess not.
When are we not talking about anxiety personally or
professionally? Just constant. Which fine. Is why Sarah bought us this cute little thing for the office for our, moments of potentially anxiety, but also just moments where we want to come down self-care. Off of the things of, we now have little clay,
little polymer clay
things that we're creating little mini breakfast items with. Sarah made the cutest little bowl of Fruit Loops.
And your Pop-Tart is so cute. I put them in my oven last night, and Ryan, my husband, was like, are you guys okay? And I was like, no, like, this makes us okay.
Yeah.
Well, because I know we've talked about it a good bit on the podcast, is when we're owning this business, it's really hard to not work because we could literally work 24/7, 365 at any point. And we kind of do. And I think that we're starting to scale back a little bit out of need, not out of want. And that's hard. And it reaches a point where it's like, no, we need something in the office where it takes our hands away from our computers, our phones. It can be small amount of time or large amount of time. And it's just fun.
It's so fun.
It's like tiny. It's tedious.
Yes.
It like fits us really, really well.
It does. Gives me a reason to make another Pinterest board.
Yeah, exactly.
I love those.
So we fell victim to the polymer clay trend, but in the best way.
Yeah. So if you got any ideas, if you want to see any polymer clay items on our Instagram, we'll post them on the gram.
I love that.
Link it in the comments. But yes, okay. So anxiety. And I feel like this word, it pops up on social media, in just like the media, even news currently, all the things constantly.
Well, even like, again, pop culture too, of the anxiety song that was a trending dance on TikTok.
Oh yeah, that's my anxiety.
Yeah, it's literally about someone feeling intense distress for anxiety. Meanwhile, there's like the juxtaposition of people just like absolutely like cranking it out on TikTok and Instagram, of just like getting down with
cranking it out.
It's like, okay, yeah, it's just such an interesting aesthetic now, and I hate that there's an aesthetic of it, but I can see it very clearly when I think about it.
Yeah, well, I think there's a spectrum, right, of a balance, but it's good in ways of, okay, it's bringing awareness to mental health. We're starting to talk about it and somewhat like normalize it, not make it as taboo. But then on the other hand, it's like, okay, but it's making it seem like it's a fun little quirky thing, which we've talked about before, of like, oh, I have anxiety kind of thing. When in reality, it's actually very distressing.
Well, and even like I think it's Gen Z that says it the most. It's always, I'm so scared. And I actually talked to a lot of parents about it. It's because all of their kids are suddenly saying, I'm scared.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when did that become a catchphrase? And I had to talk to the parent, and I was saying like, hey, like when they say I'm so scared, it's just I'm uncertain and I'm a little bit anxious. But again, if like we said I'm so scared, I'd be like,
you good?
What?
Like what? We don't ever use that word.
Like, is there a bug or is there a threat? So again, like there's all of these like cultural nuances of anxiety. And we really wanted to break down not only just like the clinical side of anxiety to help, first of all, define it. I had someone ask me this week, like, what even is anxiety?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
That is a great question.
So we'll be defining that in this episode, and also just talking through the layers past what you see in the media. So obviously like the different forms it can take, how it can impact you. Also just what to do with it.
Yeah. So we put it on the gram of like, we ask people, what do you feel like anxiety is, or how does it manifest? And there's mentions of panic, fear, if statements.
I loved that.
Or like the what if statements, spinning, and then claustrophobic or claustrophobia. Yeah. Also valid.
Really all encompassing. And I felt like those were honestly really great words to describe it. I also think that it highlights that anxiety is a very unique and personal experience, even though it is universal. So it's something that's so widely known, but hardly talked about or really understood.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one.
And you mentioning that like personal thing of anxiety is not a bad thing.
Right.
And, you know, we look at it as like, oh, this is a scary thing. We got to get rid of it. When in reality, no, we actually need it for many things. And we'll go into later, like even where it stems from biologically. Yeah. But it's more just understanding how to work with it, interpret it, understand what it's coming from, what it looks like, how it's showing up.
When you said that, I honestly kind of laughed because I had to send this to my husband to print because we were out of printer paper and I forgot to order some. But I sent it to him, and I think I titled the document with this. I think it was like anxiety isn't the enemy or something like that. And he texted me. He was like, Sarah, I fundamentally disagree with that. He was like, anxiety is the enemy. And I was like, your shame is showing. He's like, no, I'm not. And like started to tell me like his whole vantage point on how anxiety is the enemy. I obviously like I don't agree with him in that statement, which is fine. But again, I think it also highlights that it's just very, very personalized. And even just like how we view anxiety in our life. Is it this like gremlin in the corner? Is it a shadow? Is it a frenemy? Like we just don't know until we investigate it.
Yeah. Okay, so question. If your anxiety had a voice, who would it be? What would it sound like?
Yes. I think if you'd asked me that when I was younger, I probably would have not taken accountability. And I probably would have said it had the voice of like a bully from school or a coach or maybe even like a parent sometimes, depending on what it was saying. But it's mine. It's my voice, 100%. Like it is a very mean and nasty version of myself. Yeah, and that's just like, you know. Yeah. What is it? Practicing what I preach. It's mine. Yeah. What about you?
You know, yes, of like when obviously it sounds like me, but I've always kind of pictured my anxiety as like Monica from Friends.
Oh, because she's like buzzing all the time.
She's constantly, but she always tries to like cover it with humor too. Yeah. So there's that little bit of like control. I want to plan. I want to overdo it, but also I want it to be in a funny, lighthearted way. When in reality, I'm freaking out.
It's true.
So yes, mine would probably be like Monica from Friends.
You do remind me a lot of like this really cool combination of Monica and Phoebe.
Oh,
you know, because there's obviously like the very, very type A, organized, but then there's the Phoebe who's like, it's sunny outside. Everything is okay. And like the flower child and just like really loving and caring.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. I love it's the combo of the Monica and Phoebe.
But yeah, I think so. I think that would be mine of like trying to cover up my anxiety with humor, but then also like it's super helpful. I feel like my anxiety has come forward for me in so many areas.
I was gonna say, what's like a way that it's helped you and even protected you, even if it's just been a little bit messy?
Yeah. So I think that like with being productive, and I know we've talked about that word before, but I truly mean in the sense of like school or the business of like I actually have to get work done. Yeah. Like I gotta, you know, deadlines and such, or even just starting a business of figuring out, okay, what are all the inner workings of that? How do we make sure this is ethical? Of like my anxieties helped me to one, make sure I'm doing things the right way because I'm so fearful of us breaking the law and doing things like that.
The
especially,
IRS.
Yeah, the taxes. And then like with school of deadlines of I would be so far ahead in school, like 2 weeks, I'd have it done because just in case something was to happen. Yeah. Still do. Yeah. And I've noticed it's come into like wedding planning too. Of looking on my list, I'm like, oh, okay, that's done. But I'm getting a lot of affirmation for that of all the people that I'm talking to. They're like, oh my gosh,
that's amazing.
That's so great that you're doing this early. And in reality, I'm like, yeah, it's based solely out of my fear that I'm not gonna have food at my wedding. So for me, that's how it's been like helpful. And it is a lot and it's hard and it caused me not to want to take breaks or have like me time, but it has helped in those ways. But what about you?
I think anxiety has shown me what I want, and it's been really interesting to tell me about like my value system. Anxiety's done a lot for most people, and I'm not exempt from that. But when I think about this, what immediately comes to my mind is I know I talk about it so often. It's probably annoying at this point.
It's not.
But I didn't even tell you, but thank you.
I know, because you're just not annoying.
I know I mentioned like being an aunt in past episodes, but this actually isn't something I've even shared with like my brother or my sister-in-law. Becoming an aunt fundamentally saved my life in a lot of different ways. My nephews, I can't even get started on that. But when I learned I was becoming an aunt, that kicked my anxiety into motion, and it told me what I wanted for my own life. And I knew the kind of aunt I wanted to be for, I didn't know at the time, I was like my nieces or my nephews or all the above. I really learned like what I wanted and like the impression I wanted to make on other people, especially children. But I also realized what I wanted for myself in my own life.
Yeah.
And I think that in the moment, that intense anxiety was like, you want this. I mean, it was maladaptive because it was like, what if you don't have it? What if it fails? It's the if statements. And what if this is never going to happen because things just don't work and all the other things. But largely, anxiety does tell me like exactly what I'm wanting and what I'm needing.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little barometer for true north.
Definitely. Of its information, you guys. Feelings aren't good or bad. They're just information. And they just are.
Exactly.
So was there like a specific time in your life where you realized, okay, this isn't just like a quirk or I'm just, but it's essentially like protection?
Yes. And so I think that, and I really love the stance that we as a practice take on mental health. And it's very biopsychosocial. So it's incorporating the whole body and the mind and the spirit. So for me, anxiety was actually a really great tool in diagnostics for my health.
Yeah.
Around the time where I was graduating from college, I had a lot happening. I was student teaching full time, which means I was completely out of the college campus in schools. I had a family wedding. I was trying to figure out what to do next. There was a lot happening at once, and I was trying to be on it and helpful in every single regard. But I noticed I was so intensely anxious all the time. I would rate it as a moderate to severe level of distress.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like me. There were other changes happening. It turns out my thyroid stopped working. And it was one of those where I had talked to a few professionals and all of them were like, well, of course you're going through a life transition. Of course you're anxious. But every time, again, like I'm proud of myself, I advocated for it. And I said, no, this is not normal.
This feels off.
Right. I was like, I don't understand what's happening. Even like my partner at the time was like, you're just losing it because you're a control freak. It kind of tracks. Yeah. But at the same time, I remember going to the doctor and they did a bunch of blood work and I got a call back saying like, hey, like your thyroid's not working. Like you need, like I'm on Synthroid now because I've been really badly hypothyroid.
Yeah.
And so I think that anxiety can also be a side effect of other physiological concerns.
Yeah.
So again, like it protected me and gave me a signal that my health wasn't correct. What about you?
Yeah. So mine would definitely have to be, it was high school. I had just left high school and gone into, homeschooling for tennis. So I was playing that, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. almost every single day. And it started showing up in competition. So before I didn't have the word for anxiety. I was like, oh, I'm just like shy, or I'm just, I'm just nervous.
Timid.
I have a lot of those kinds of things. I'm only child. So I'm like, I just don't know how to socialize. That was not the case.
Oh, the only child homeschool arc.
Yes, right. Which I actually told someone the other day that I was homeschooling. They're like, you do not present as a homeschooler.
No, you don't.
And I was like, what does that mean, first of all? And then second of all, I was like,
what it means.
And then second of all, I was like, yeah, I'm public school for all of my life.
Yeah.
But I was getting out on the court and I was crying. And like, I was feeling just from competition, all these feelings. I'm like, okay, am I just not good enough? Like, do I just not have enough confidence in myself? And finally it took me going to an actual therapist and doing some, I actually did, what's it called? It starts with an M, I think. Starts with an H. Hypnosis.
Oh, you did hypnotherapy?
Yes, I did hypnotherapy, and
cool.
that was a wild experience. Also, I cried after that.
That was your first experience.
It was.
Oh
it
my
was.
gosh.
Yeah. So I got thrown in with therapy,
I'm so sorry.
like full to the stuff. But through that, I was able to realize, like, oh no, there's a word for this. It's not that just like there's something wrong with me and my personality, but instead, like, no, I have anxiety.
Yeah.
Specifically, like with competitiveness and like being in competition created that anxiety for me because I didn't want to lose. But I think it protected my self-esteem a little bit because once I had a word for it, I was able to say, okay, this isn't me. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. It's just like an aspect. It's an element of, you know, things in my life that we're dealing with right now.
Or like you're not quote unquote crazy.
Yeah.
So I know when we think about anxiety, I was going to bring my DSM in, but it's just really big.
Yeah,
and it's heavy.
It's purple though, so
but
it's cute.
It would have been great dramatic effect to be like poof.
Yeah.
But according to the DSM, which again, the DSM, she's outdated. Yep. She's been being rewritten for millions of years. And the rewrite will still be outdated because it's just old at this point. But looking at the DSM definition of anxiety, so it's basically like our diagnostic manual. Anxiety is characterized by excessive fear, worry, or apprehensive anticipation of future threat. So it involves persistent and disproportionate worry that's difficult to control and often interferes with daily functioning. Side effects can include, and symptoms can include, restlessness, feeling on edge. It's usually when professors say, like, it's like you're feeling keyed up. Fatigue or trouble sleeping, difficulty concentrating, muscle tension and irritability. And it's not characterized by a different medical condition. It occurs more often than not for at least 6 months, and it causes clinically significant distress.
Yeah. When you did that, I wanted to be like, common symptoms are restlessness or feeling on edge, fatigue or trouble sleeping, difficulty concentrating, muscle tension, irritability. Like my head instantly went to all of those things.
Yes.
But that's why using this term anxiety, like, yes, there are times where truly it is anxiety, which is like clinically significant.
Yeah.
When we talk about diagnostic, a lot of people are like, well, I think I'm diagnosed with anxiety. It's like, okay, well, let's dive into that a little bit more, because there's times where we are anxious or are feeling anxious versus we have a diagnosis of anxiety.
Or it's like we're nervous.
Yes. And or like we're stressed or there's worry or other things going on, but also like the idea of like clinically significant. I think that's the part everyone's like, well, what does that mean? And essentially it's this idea that it's not just I'm nervous because I have to do a presentation and I have to take a beta blocker. That is very much situational.
It's also clinically significant distress.
Yes. But of like, we're feeling it going into multiple areas of our life where we're like avoiding things.
It'll interfere with our daily functioning.
Yes.
So I think that brings up, and I really wanted to include this, the anxious therapist, because again, most therapists come to the field because they have experience with mental health of some sort, and it's there. You can't check it at the door. Even when you're doing great and it's awesome, a lot of therapists are still a little bit more anxious or they're anxiety prone. And so I think a lot of clients have questions about like, okay, well, how can my therapist be a good clinician if they have anxiety or if they're having an anxious day? And I really wanted us to be able to bust this myth.
Yep.
Listen, your therapist can be anxious or have anxiety and be a great therapist. How?
Correct. So, one, I think it brings in the element of like true empathy and understanding of like when you're talking about these things, I'm hearing it. Yes. I get it. But then I also think that a really important part of this, because people are like, okay, well, what if you get anxious in session and then that causes like
you shouldn't know
transference and all the things, which you guys
the client should not know. Yeah.
Which and most of the time you won't know.
No.
If we are doing our own work and training well. I tend to I do a lot of fidgeting.
Yeah, I'm a fidgeter.
And I've started noticing it actually, of I put my glasses on.
Yeah.
And they're not even my real glasses, they're blue light glasses. But if I put my blue light glasses on, I'm trying to almost create like a shift of like, okay, there's Caroline and now there's like professional Caroline. And it creates like a whole other, okay, I'm in work mode now. Because we are able to compartmentalize. Yeah. We're actually do a lot of training, not intentional training, honestly, but just like it kind of happens.
You can compartmentalize to a fault.
Yes.
I've been told.
Yes. Of like, we have learned how to put our own things in a little box and then put it to the back until after session, because we're able to sit in there and be like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
This is for you.
And if people want to like see behind the curtain a little bit, there's so many different like grounding techniques that we do as therapists. Like you said, like you put on your glasses. I think I just naturally fidget. just in like a sensory stance. But there's things like sometimes in between sessions, I'll go wash my hands with really cold water and almost visualize any thoughts or feelings I have like going down the drain. Just to serve as a good buffer and a good boundary between myself personally and myself professionally. Also so that one client's concerns don't bleed into another and things like that. I also think that if we're having an anxious day, it really helps us bring home our stance of having highly personalized treatment for clients. Because we can look at a client and say, hey, classic CBT, DBT, IFS says we can treat anxiety or this thought with these skills. Does this feel accurate? Or how can we adjust or fine tune this to actually fit your life? I think that the experiences of anxiety can help understand that a little bit better.
And, you know, going into that experience of anxiety, we mentioned earlier, like it is very specific to the person. So it's like a shapeshifter, right? Like it can look different for different people. Like I know for me, well, we'll go into that later. But okay, so the topics are like there's fawning, which means like you're looking to make everyone happy and I want to make sure everyone's cool and copacetic. There's hypervigilance of being very aware, tuning into your surroundings, whether that's just environment or that's people. There's like intellectualizing, which a lot of us think like, oh, we're processing. It's no, you're just stating facts and things that are happening and putting your feelings into fact, which can be important, but we also got to get with the actual emotion section of that. There's humor. Humor is deflection and obsessive planning. So the Monicas of the world.
I will say I actually called out in my personal life the intellectualizing of anxiety recently, and I didn't realize I was doing it in the moment, and I did feel really bad, and I apologized after. But I was like, hey, it sounds like you're really hyper-focused on like what is happening and not why it's happening, and we're not balancing these things. You realize it's not going to do anything, right? So I wasn't in work mode, but I was like skirting that line a little bit too much. Oopsies. But again, like you said, anxiety will hide under this like competent label or this perfection label, because again, it's like, well, no one can see if I'm anxious if I'm really productive or if I'm really successful, or depression can't hit a moving target. It can. It will.
And it will.
Like you can, it's again, like anxiety looks different in everybody. And if someone has all their ducks in a row, maybe it's because they're so anxious they feel like they can't. Or if someone is disheveled and has no duck in any row, there's no ducks at all. Maybe it's because we have like decision paralysis or decision fatigue, and starting that up and our executive functioning skills are fried.
Or they're running away from their ducks. Like, I don't even want to look at my ducks. I don't want anything to do with these ducks. That could also be anxiety.
We should make ducks out of clay.
Oh my gosh, yes. There it is. That's our next one. We're making little things of ducks. But okay, so this stat blew my mind.
Yeah, it kind of hurt my soul.
It did. So, okay, the average person spends nearly 6.5 years of their life worrying. Makes my heart just like jump right now. And 91% of those worries never come true.
Listen, I know it says 6.5 years. We probably spend like 16,
30, 31 years, and I'm only 30.
I'm like, how old are we?
So, like, it's this idea that anxiety is popping up because it wants us to be like aware. But the awareness isn't based out of fact. It's not based out of evidence.
And if obviously like 91% of those things don't come true, oh boy, does anxiety love to hang on to that 9% of when it actually comes true. It's like, see, there it is. It's like I imagine when I was working in the preschool, there's always this like one toddler on the playground that was kind of like, see, you're being mean. It's like, oh geez, maybe that's another voice of anxiety. It's that when it comes true, it's like, see, I was right. Ew, stop.
I prepared you, and then I prepared you for that 1% of the time, so that means I need to go in for the rest of your life.
It's like, you're welcome. That's just rude. So looking through things clinically, obviously I love a good neuroscience perspective. Actually, after our last session, I was looking at grief-based brain scans, and it was really cool. It was really sad, but the like neuroplasticity that happens after grief. Anywho,
if you want to take a check out on that, we'll leak those
something. It's just like rabbit holes.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at anxiety will always trigger our amygdala, which is just like the danger zone of our brain. But when our amygdala is activated with anxiety, it's usually going to kick our prefrontal cortex into submission. So again, like our prefrontal cortex, which again is not fully developed until they're actually going to shift it now. You
later,
said, right?
Yeah,
later
20s, like later 20s, even 30s.
Right. So that's meaning obviously that prefrontal cortex, that's like pre-planning and like decision making without being impulsive. Yep. If that's going into submission, your amygdala will stop making you think clearly. And I think that's what's most frustrating for some people clinically is this idea of, hey, I have all these coping skills, but in the moment, I don't know why I can't think of them. Yep. And that's usually when I bring in the neuroscience angle of, and I have a little brain that I have.
Do you really? You have a little brain in here?
It's like a little stress ball.
Oh yeah, the little green one. Yeah.
And I bring up the brain and I show where the amygdala is. And I'm like, hey, this little friend is not being your friend in that moment. Your amygdala does not know the difference between you're worried about what's going to happen at the dinner table when your parent comes in, doesn't know the difference between that and you're being chased by a bear. Yeah. So it's going to tell your prefrontal cortex, we don't need to work right now. I got it. I'm going to take over. And so again, we don't access those coping skills in the moment. We can kind of find like other ways to get there. But I always tell clients, like, there's a reason why this is happening. Your body is really kicked into fight or flight when it's, like we said, clinically significant distress.
Right. Yeah. Have you ever heard of the hand model of the brain?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I always bring that in of like, okay, if you take your hand, for all of you who are not watching on YouTube, and if you're not, go check out our YouTube.
Watch us on YouTube.
Yeah. But you take your hand, you like bend your thumb in, and then you take the rest of the four fingers and bend them down of like this top part's your rational brain. Yeah. And then the thumb is like your amygdala, so your emotional side of the brain. And essentially when fight or flight, anxiety, all of those things are happening, I call it a lid flip. Of like the rational side of your brain flips up and it's not in use anymore. Yeah. And this actually works with kids really well.
That's a great
you flip
way of describing it.
I've actually... There has been questions sometimes of like, does your brain actually flip a lid? And I was like, no, your brain is a full thing, but just like, yes. But it like flips up, that rational side's gone. So we have to bring that rational side down so that we're not operating solely off of our thumb emotion, but like the full brain kind of situation.
I love that. So, okay, let's think about some ways that our body will signal us when we're like hypothetically like flipping our lid in our brain. So things like our heart starts to race. We can sweat.
Heavy breathing.
Sometimes you have to race to the bathroom.
Yeah. You start having GI things going on. The fidgeting of like bouncing the leg or moving the hands. I know sometimes for me, like it almost feels like my eyes start like me, you know what I mean?
My extremities get cold because obviously like my body's so tense, like it's concentrating like my blood to my major organs, and so obviously like my hands and feet, it's just like, sorry, you're not important right now. It's an accessory. So there's things like that. Again, like you might have brain fog, but again, that's in a way that's different than normal. So if at baseline, like I like to fidget normally, I won't be thinking and I'm fidgeting. So for me, it's if the fidgeting gets worse than normal. It's not if this is your baseline, it's if it's getting worse than normal.
And we see anxiety coming in as essentially shifting the way that we look at ourselves, right? So like this idea that like we take, I care so deeply about these things. I'm a highly sensitive person to then, oh, they're dramatic or they're super needy. Yeah. Or this idea of like, I want to be with this person. I want to be around them to, oh, you're anxiously attached. And, sometimes that can't happen. Like we can have anxious attachments. Yeah. But in reality, but in reality, like these are just parts and elements of what's going on and what's important to us shining through and coming out. And I know like a lot of times we're told like, oh, we got to trust in the universe, trust that what's meant to happen is going to happen. And this can be like, one, it can be really harmful. It can. But it also like invalidates that story and that idea that like our nervous system's telling us that this is not safe for us and it doesn't feel good. And I want to kind of tie in a more biblically based perspective to this, because for a lot of people it is actually really healing, and it is important to hear like, hey, like God has you, there is a purpose, there is a plan for you. So like trust in this process kind of thing. And so for a lot of people that can be healing to hear. For others, they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Of like, just pray about it. Some people are like, I don't want to just pray about it.
Right.
Other people are like, no, that was good. I needed to be reminded to just pray about it. So it does vary based on the person. Like for me, I am actually one of those people that I need to hear like, hey, you got to release it. You got to release it, pray about it, give it to God. And like, there's a purpose for all of it. Where there's other people, they're like,
yeah, that's not how I like to receive things at all.
And even some Christians, like they don't want to hear that either. And so it's just kind of tapping into like what works for you too.
Exactly. And I think that clinically, one of the biggest phrases that I see anxiety like taking over someone's narrative is we can be doing a great session, amazing processing, and we talk about a concern and we talk about sources of support. And it's a client says something like, oh yeah, like I think I really want to tell my partner about this and I want to let them in. But then not 15, 20 seconds later, they say, well, they have a lot going on, so I don't want to add more to their plate. That statement, I think I've heard it hundreds of times, both professionally and personally. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like that is anxiety telling you you're not worth it. Because the fact of the matter is everyone has stuff all the time, every day. It's not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't supersede your worth. Yeah. Like, yes, we can be respectful. So just like context, time and place, make sure it works. But still, like, you can share that. Anxiety is this ultimate manipulator sometimes of telling you you're unsafe and you're not enough. It's a big one.
It's a big one.
And it's also this way of like your body's just talking to you and just saying, hey, I love you. I just don't trust what's happening right now. I don't trust the world. Something's making me uneasy. And anxiety is just a different way of communicating with you, whether we like it or not.
Right. So let's talk about communication styles of anxiety. Hashtag anxiety archetypes.
This is fun to break down, honestly.
So it's like what we've seen in therapy spaces, how it shows up a lot of times. And of course, this is not the end all be all, but it is just very,
it's like a real person.
Salient.
Yeah, real person perspective.
Yeah. So the overfunctioner.
Do all the things.
Do all the things all the time. And if we're doing everything, nothing bad's going to happen because we've prepped for it.
Can't hit a moving target.
Yeah. I just keep going.
Yep.
So there's the overfunctioner. There's the avoider.
Yep.
Of like, if I don't look at my ducks are not there.
They're not quacking.
Of like, like it can't hurt me, can't get me if I stay away. The fixer. Yeah. If I just solve everyone else's problems and if I solve everything that's going on with everyone else, then I can feel safe because they're happy.
It's a lot of helping professionals.
Yes.
A lot of helping professionals.
The analyzer of if I just get it perfectly, this is a lot of the intellectualizing of our feelings, then like I can't be blindsided of like I just got to understand it. I got to figure it out. And the last one is the fawner. And our little fawners out there, it's like, if you like me, if I do everything to make you happy, then we're going to be fine. Because as long as you're happy, then I'm happy.
Absolutely. And I think that, so all these archetypes are based out of, I don't remember what episode we went over cognitive distortions in. It was one of them. But classic cognitive behavioral theory has cognitive distortions of like basically the lies your brain likes to tell you. And that's where we kind of used this to create these archetypes based on obviously that as a foundation and our clinical experience. But just remember that we can experience all of these more than just this, but it's kind of a good framework of giving a voice to your anxiety. So, okay, which ones pop out to you?
So the one that I can like fully see when it's happening is my overfunctioner. Yeah. Of like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm pushing myself way too hard right now. Of like, I recognize that's what I'm doing. And a lot of times I look at myself and I say, I'm okay with it. But, I need to do that work. But calling myself into that, I'm definitely most like at home, I guess, with the overfunctioner of I can see that happening. That happens very frequently. The one that sneaks up on me, which is actually interesting for me to say this because I feel like it would be switched, but I don't think that it is when I actually process, is the fawner.
Oh.
Of like, I find myself going into like, well, I just, as long as, I just want to make sure you're okay. Yeah. Even when I'm not okay, like, and if you're okay, then like, I'm good. Yeah. And me, like, I would think that would be the one that I'm most aware of because I know that I do that, but it's the one that like pops in there and I'm like, ooh, wait a minute, is this actually how I feel, or am I just managing my feelings because of how they feel and making sure they're okay?
The fawner is hard because all of a sudden it's like, well, everybody else around me is okay, but now I'm not. And now I kind of resent everybody else too.
I don't feel authentically me.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I was similar with the overfunctioning.
Yeah.
I'm also pretty heavily avoidant. So is those two. I think it was last night I was called out for, it wasn't called out. I was called in for being a pretty avoidant personality, which is very true. I think those two are the ones that definitely I reach to the most. But balance. And I think it's this idea of, you know, contrary to what my husband had to say, I do think that anxiety doesn't have to be the enemy. I think that we can find a better relationship with it. Just because of having this like hostile relationship with our own brain. Again, it takes energy away from us. It spikes our cortisol. It can impact everything in our life. And you can find a little bit more like homeostasis with it.
Yeah. Okay, so question.
Yes.
Do you have like a favorite, either personal or professional or both, like skills that you use when like looking at anxiety?
I actually personally and professionally, I like tip skills from DBT. So I'm a big DBT gal. That's dialectical behavioral therapy. I lean more into DBT than CBT for all of my clinical folks out there. I just like it more, you know, I vibe with it better. And so tip skills in DBT, it's an acronym. So T is for temperature. And so it's an intense like heat or cold rush to your nervous system. It's kind of why cold plunges make sense. And there's a lot of data to back up. First of all, not like submerging your whole body in water for 2 minutes. No, but it's like shocking your face in a bowl of cold water. But yeah, it's like a true like a flash of hot or cold. I can't do hot because I will faint, but cold is really helpful. Or like having the ice cubes on your pulse points. The I is for intense exercise. That is the one I lean into the most. And so with that, the whole method behind intense exercise as a coping skill. For the people that are like, why is everyone telling me to exercise for anxiety? So it's this idea that for a lot of folks, anxiety will ramp up your heart rate. So say your resting is 65 beats per minute. And when you're anxious, you're at 110, 120. When you're engaging in an exercise that will meet that heart rate. So instead of just sitting on the couch having a 120 beats per minute heart rate, if you are walking on an incline and you get up to 120, your body and your mind are better able to de-escalate that. So you're able to have that physical sensation of come down. The first P is for paced breathing. My least favorite skill ever. And then the second one is progressive muscle relaxation. So I love those tip skills. I also like sensory work. Stuff like that. What about you?
So my personal ones and my professional ones are different. Personally, I've talked about it on here.
Clay.
Yes, doing art.
Ducks out of clay.
But I'm not a journaler. I've mentioned that. But I've recognized that like I can have my journaling through talking, and usually I'll do it like when I drive home. Like that's when I have my process time, because if I don't create time for me to process, then I don't always give time for myself to process. So I do like a verbal processing, and I like to frame it as like through prayer of reaching out and saying like, hey, here's my stuff. Here's what I understand about my stuff. I'm giving my stuff to you now. Like I need some assistance. But then also of like, with myself, I take a lot of CBT related skills of like, I need evidence. I need to figure out the evidence for it. I need to figure out the evidence against it. And I need to understand, like for me, okay, am I making this up, or is there actually some fact behind it? So that's what I use it like with myself. But then professionally, I do a lot of somatic stuff of like body scanning, checking in with, okay, what sensations are we feeling or happening? And even like proactively body scanning just to figure out our base level, because a lot of us don't know our baseline. And then recognizing those warning signs in the body, but then using like, I love pendulation. Which is like going from a super tight or a super strained section of the body, or that could be like your neck or like your back. And then you like focus in on those sensations, and then you move to another point of your body that feels more light or more relaxed, which is essentially it. I always warn them, like, listen, I know it's gonna feel like a little,
Squeezing
I don't know, a little woo woo. Yes, tension the butt,
Tense your butt.
but like it spreads that energy and it spreads that stress.
Yeah,
like the cortisol that's getting stored and like shifts it to other places, as well as like PMR. I love progressive muscle relaxation.
I love actually when you brought up like the data and the facts. For a lot of my CBT based clients, I always like to say that data is the nemesis of anxiety. Anxiety cannot stand raw data.
Yep.
And there's always going to be an exception to this. But when I'm talking to people generally, I always like to say, like, imagine you're taking your anxious thought to court. And for like my younger folks or for my own creative folks, we're like, okay, let's describe the courtroom. Like, what does anxiety look like? Do you have your little briefcase? And I always say, like, state your case.
Yep.
Let's look at it. And it's, and I think that, like, I love that you do that personally too, because again, telling anxiety it's wrong will rarely work. It's just going to invalidate it and bring it back threefold. But I think when you're able to state the facts, you can say, okay, I understand this anxious thought can be coming from here because it was kind of true there, but I have this like 90% of my facts say otherwise.
Yep.
And it's just a better balance. It's like, all right, well, I guess my anxiety was just trying to warn me that I don't want to be embarrassed again, but I know like I've got it and it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah. What's the idea of like being curious? Of the whole point is not to be like, no, you're wrong, because in some capacities, like for that 9%, there's going to be some truth to it. And even in that 91%, like it is just showing us, okay, I'm fearful of this. And so even after the evidence, I always like to, with clients or with myself, of like, even if that anxiety could be true, what's a more helpful, supportive way to talk to myself through that? Of like, I understand that, like, yes, I'm concerned about potentially embarrassing myself by getting up here and doing this presentation, but you know what? This is one point of my life. I have all of these people who care about me and love me, and they're going to be there for me for when it's over. Yeah.
Well, and I know that, and I think that's one of the most frustrating parts of anxiety is there's not really a quick fix. And it's almost like you can implement a skill and it kind of helps, but it doesn't make it go away. And again, anxiety is really distressing. And I think people just want it to completely evaporate. While we wish that could happen, like we would always want to wave that magic wand, we just need to befriend it a little bit differently. And I think that it's actually a great thing that I use with couples. It's not you two versus each other. It's the two of you versus the problem. So we can say you and your anxiety versus an issue at hand. And so for anyone that like wants more and they're thinking, I get it, this is me, I'm identifying as the overfunctioner, we actually have listed out a few of like some fun skills to try. I thought this would be like a fun pivot from our past episodes, because again, like you can pick one, try it out, let us know. So let's kind of go back and forth and give the people what they want. So
give them obviously the stuff.
First one being, and again, I think this will also show people our style for Soul Haven. It's creative. It's a little weird sometimes, but welcome. So glad you're here. So the first one is the anxious roommate. I really like this one. I was the anxious roommate, but it's fine. So imagine anxiety as a well-intended roommate who rearranges your furniture at 2 a.m. I repainted our kitchen in college at 2:30.
You did not.
I did. It looked great.
It did look great, yeah.
So practice the dialogue of what you would tell this roommate of like, I get it. You're trying to make the living room amazing by moving the couches. I get it. I understand. It's not the time. Right. So practice. If your anxiety is that anxious roommate, what is happening? And then practice that conversation with them. First of all, it incorporates more humor and it can help diffuse that tension, both mentally and sometimes physically too, but also just give you a way to balance that thought a little bit differently.
I love that one too, because it takes it out of like, it is me or it's inside me, and puts it like, okay, no, this is another being.
It's my roommate.
Yes. Okay. So mine is the somatic data scan.
Perfect for you.
Yeah, perfect. Of like, this is what I talked about earlier of like checking in with your body, labeling those sensations. So starting like at the top of your head and moving all the way down. You can do this eyes open, eyes closed, whatever, but in a seated, like comfortable position, just like noticing, okay, you know, where's my chest? Is it feeling tight? You know, is my forehead, am I like, I don't know, what is that called? Scrunching?
Yeah.
Scrunching your forehead?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I felt like they're, well, anyways,
furrowing your brow.
Furrowing, that's what I was looking for. Or like, is my jaw tight? Moving all the way down to your toes, and then like checking in with those parts that are feeling more like dysregulated, essentially more tight, of like, okay, this tightness in my chest, it's not danger, it's just data, it's just letting me know where I'm storing this energy. And then like tracking those patterns of seeing like, okay, is this my nervous system letting me know that this is potentially a trigger for me, of like when I am driving to work, I'm starting to feel all of these sensations, or when I am, you know, getting ready to eat lunch, I'm feeling a little bit more relaxed, and none of these sensations, of like checking into those patterns. And that'll help you to just kind of be like more proactive in identifying those triggers.
And another one, I like to do this with clients, having little challenges for yourself, but make sure that they're micro uncertainty challenges. So you're picking a very like low stakes situation where you can choose to experience a little bit of discomfort. So maybe it's sending a text without overthinking. Obviously this is not in a conflict based conversation, but just generally, if you overthink a text, send one without second guessing it, or taking a different route home. Actually, something I love to do with clients is I do this to practice grounding for very busy people, especially like busy parents. I always encourage them to take their grocery list or their shopping list. And so say it's like Target. I always say, go complete your Target list at the Target that's the second closest to your home. Because first of all, it typically doesn't usually add much time. Those things are everywhere. And it also, you have to be aware of where you're at, because every Target is laid out differently. You're more aware of your surroundings. You have to be a bit more mindful, and you still get things done. So again, that's a great way to have that micro uncertainty challenge. You're embracing discomfort in a small way. Maybe you're deviating from your norm in a little fashion, but you also tell yourself that like you can build your resilience in this way. It's telling your anxiety like, I got this.
Okay, so next one is a regulation spectrum mapping. So like you're identifying the personal like nervous system zones from calm to activated. So of course through this, like we are not saying like, hey, you're going to do these things and you're going to go from extremely elevated to essentially Zen moment. That is not what we are saying here. Of even, we're just talking about minor shifts of that dysregulation, of feeling that activation. And so like creating a toolkit for whatever zone you're in. So that might be like, okay, when I am feeling really keyed up, that it's time for me to implement some movement, of maybe, okay, I need to do yoga or go for a run. I would not personally go for a run.
I did that a few weeks ago.
I would absolutely like have a heart attack.
I did that 2 weeks
with
ago.
my cardio, which like I'm so happy
Thank you
for you that you're able to do
I think
that.
it showed where I was at.
Or like using a creative outlet, our little mini clays, or even just like drawing, doodling. Like doodling is so helpful for all you kids out there, or parents of kids.
Keep
if your
doodling.
kid doodles in class,
Keep doodling.
of course there's a balance to this. A lot of times it's genuinely to calm themselves down, or it's to be able to maintain focus. And a lot of people look at it as like disrespectful, and it's not. Like it's not that they're not paying attention. It's literally them
They are paying
diverting.
attention.
Journaling, guided visualization, tapping. Love some tapping. But just giving yourself like specific ones that work best for you when you're in your zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that another one is obviously like the anxiety journaling kind of process. It's exactly what you mentioned. It's either journaling or speaking out loud about anxiety, not as a judgment form, but almost like you're having a conversation with anxiety. Again, it's taking it out of this like antagonistic approach and more of just this like conversational way. And it's a more curiosity based lens.
And the last one's narrative reframing. So like taking those intrusive, anxious thoughts or those cognitive distortions and turning them into like stories, of essentially releasing them from this is my reality, and instead looking at into a different perspective, of like they're co-characters. It's a part. They're not the enemy. We're just working together to create this. So like, okay, you're the alarm anxiety, but I'm the decision maker. Or like, okay, I can't control this first thought, but I can control what I do with this second thought. Or, you know, what's a more supportive way to think about this situation?
And obviously the whole idea behind all these exercises is not to cure anxiety, like we said, but it's again to just have a different relationship with it. Because first of all, it helps with shame work. It also just kind of gives us a little bit more acceptance into, okay, if this is something that's happening right now, I can lean in and listen to it instead of pushing it away. And you can also gain that confidence in knowing that I completely get that these thoughts are this way. It's telling me I want to be safe and I want to be secure. I have what I need within me. I just need to go find it right now. And sometimes it's easier to access than others.
So great. So if you want to work with us, if you hear this and you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds great.
Love that.
Where do I sign up?
I want to see the clay ducks.
Yeah. We will show you our clay ducks, and we are going to post our Fruit Loop and our Pop-Tart, and Sarah made a pretzel today.
I did.
So we got all those. But you can find us at www.soulhavengeorgia.com. We have Sarah, me, and then we have our other Sarah,
She's
our amazing
great.
Sarah Norris. She's amazing. She's fully licensed now, which is so huge.
LCSW.
Yes. So if you want to work with any of us, you can visit us there. Of course, check us out on social media at Soul Haven Counseling, all the things, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, all the stuff. Like and subscribe. But then also remembering that Couch Convos is not a substitute for therapy. So if you do feel you are in immediate danger, please visit your local emergency room, call 911 or 988. But until then,
it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
We will catch you guys on the next episode.
Catch y'all later.